Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Jeff, today's going to be a perfect episode.
It really is. Yeah. Just a nice quiet episode. We had a Mania. We got, Rumbles wrapped up here. We're on the road at this point. I said, you know what? Let's just watch some Monday Night Raw and enjoy ourselves.
Dude, I just always loved this match. I mean, I remember it as a kid. This was a lot different because, Monday night used to be, they sat in the studio, they kicked it to some matches. So this Raw, we forget how different this Raw presentation was. Okay. Yep. Some weeks were live, some were taped, but the taped ones, you didn't know the results. So it felt live, live crowd, the commentators at ringside. I mean, the presentation of this was radically different. So This was a big deal. And I mean, growing up, I used to watch primetime wrestling every Monday night. And, I'd record it. I'd watch it the next day because I think it was on like 9 to 11 or something. It was late as a kid. But this Raw thing was so cool. And then this match, was like, basically like a pay-per-view quality match. Loser leaves town, big stip, long match. Perfect had just come out of retirement. Flair was a former world champion. So this was a big deal. In a really, really fun match. So I'm excited to go back and watch it. This should be a lot of fun. You ready to get into the build on this?
Yeah, let's jump right in, man. Yeah.
All right, it's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
So third episode ever of Raw, January 25th, 1993. This match was taped, but that was the airing date. We're in the Manhattan Center. As you know, Jeff, I went back to the 25th anniversary of Raw in this building. It was surreal. Yep. It was like to be in a place that, used to exist, but no longer does, that you watched every week as a kid. It was awesome. So I had a blast at this thing. Sat right by the entrance. It was cool. 3 matches on this show. Randy Savage is going to defeat the Repo Man in 13 minutes. I think the angle there was the Repo Man stole, repossessed Macho Man's hat. So real campy 1993 stuff there. Kamala is going to defeat the Brooklyn Brawler in a 3-minute squash. And then the main event. And, dude, 23-minute match, which long match for TV. But I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And, that's really it. But, just a fun era. We're going to talk Raw. We got a lot of stuff to talk about during the match. I know there wasn't a major build to this one, but how did we get to this stipulation?
Yeah, we'll get real quick, and then we'll get right into the match here. You had not a whole lot happening because these, it didn't have the weekly TV at this point because literally it's just getting started. And so we're doing this. You had Flair. He had teaming with Razor to take on Savage and Perfect at Survivor Series back in November. And then you had Flair at this point the two of these guys having their feud. And so it was actually January 2nd, it kind of was when it kicked off. So just a little bit before this, you had Perfect in the Royal Rumble as well too to go for the number 1 contender match. And so, as we all know, but didn't win that one. And so, just kind of, not a ton happening, plain and simple. That while they had, in the Rumble together, there was, the few matches here and there for these guys with Survivor Series, but that was really it. Not a lot happening and just kind of getting right into it. Yep.
Good. Well, I'm pumped to cover this one. Season 1, Episode 3 of Raw, 25-minute mark. Jeff, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right. Getting ready to tie up here. Manhattan Center. headlock on Hunger banner in the background. There's probably there it is, Ico Pro. I was just about to say probably an
Yep.
Ico Pro banner, which they hung for the 25th anniversary. I love that touch.
Which was nice. You had your shirt on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was wearing the Ico Pro shirt, and somebody took a picture and posted on Twitter, and it had like tens of thousands of views. Like it was like, dude, because it was JR and King on commentary, and I was like right between them, standing there. It was like, dude, he's wearing an Ico Pro shirt in the background. I was like, yeah, I think you might.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, man, the neon WWF logo. This is just great stuff here. I'm pumped. So, this was the reason there wasn't much of a build is just because this was thrown together. So, Flair is on his way out, and he had a contract through September. Vince was going younger. And so Vince, and Flair's 44 at the time. So Vince says, hey, we're doing the youth movement thing, and I don't have a spot for you. Come work in the office. And Flair said, well, I still want to wrestle. And that was it. He reached out to WCW. WCW would take him back, and they left on good terms. And that was the end of Flair in WWE for what, 10, 11, 12 years, whatever it was. So pretty wild. Yep. For me, the Ric Flair thing in WWF, I mean, as much as I enjoyed the Macho Man stuff, it just didn't really work. And 2020 hindsight, but we didn't know who Ric Flair was. And, that's the problem is, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, Pat Patterson, they knew who Ric Flair was. And they knew about the Four Horsemen, and they knew about all those legendary promos. Jeff, I never saw any of those promos until, the last 20 years. Like, Ric Flair didn't mean anything. I just knew he was a big star on a show I didn't watch from the magazines. So if you went back, what you should have done is, built the Ric Flair character. And I know Vince just didn't like that 80s stuff, but maybe you modernize it a little bit. But Ric Flair should have been, kind of a modern day Ted DiBiase with the limousine and, the girls and the shoes and the suits, and just been this really, really arrogant, dirty heel, and came in and picked a fight with Hulk Hogan. But they didn't present it right. So it was just, hey, why is this guy wearing a blurred out belt, and what's really going on? And they blew it. I mean, really, I think Flair would have had a much longer run had they presented him the right way. And that's completely on WWF and Vince, not on Flair the performer.
Yep, absolutely. So they're kind of being methodical at this point. You had a little bit, you're kind of working in the corner, just kind of these, a little bit of wrestling here, but kind of slowing it down a little bit. So that's okay. But good stuff so far. Yep.
So final Kurt Hennig match before he passed away was 2002 against Jeff Jarrett. He worked a series of TNA matches. So at one point, him and Road Dogg were a tag team. He worked a couple against Ron Killings, 6-way match. And then his last WWF match was in 2002 Royal Rumble. He also worked the XWF tapings against Hulk Hogan. And then he was WCW prior to that. So, he had that limited run in WWF, and that was it, man. But just looking at some of his top matches, Bret Hart at the King of the Ring, a 4-star match against Tito Santana, Shawn Michaels, the other Bret Hart match from SummerSlam, this match. Just so a whole a Roddy Piper match, just a whole, Big Boss Man, just a whole bunch of 4-star matches. Probably lower than it should have been. I mean, realistically, Kurt Hennig was a great worker, so my guess is they were probably a little better than that by today's standards. But yeah, I mean, just a great worker, and I think we remember a lot of those matches. I wish we would have gotten more from him and Shawn. I think they would have been just fantastic together. A couple Bret Hart matches, but would have been nice to have more of those as well.
Yeah, I think my the Hart Perfect match is always one that I remembered forever. We don't have a folding chair. That's a conference chair. Oh my gosh, that would have like
horrible, right?
Woo! Boy, that would have been terrible to bring that down on him. Oh, going to commercial break though. Here we go. We'll be right back, and we're back. Okay. Yeah, just crazy. I did want to point out too, this is a loser leaves town stipulation as well too. We didn't say that, and so that will play into the aftermath of this one. But yeah, just reminding everybody that's what we're dealing with.
I got some good Meltzer stuff for you. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so so Meltzer was talking about Flair saying, hey, he's going to be moved from being a headliner to kind of the mid card and either tag with Razor Ramon, do some jobs. But the funny part about this paragraph was Tatanka and Doink are about to get mega pushes.
Oh man, that's what you want. Yep.
I don't know if they got mega pushes. I might challenge him on that.
I will go with no on that. Yeah.
Meltzer said that when Hart and Flair were working the house show matches, that it was getting rave reviews. The funny part is that Ric Flair was still one of the 2 or 3 best workers in the WWF at this point. So, we need a youth movement. He's 44 years old. He's like the second or third maybe best wrestler you have behind Bret Hart. Bret, Shawn Michaels, and Ric Flair, right?
Yep.
Heading Mr. Perfect a blade job here, so he's bleeding.
Selling the hell out of that corner whip too. That was a little nutty, but yeah.
So apparently the Savage Michaels matches were disappointments, and Meltzer says Savage seems to have lost his motivation in the ring. So yeah, that's probably part of what led to Vince saying, "Hey, we're going younger." But it's just wild that you still had Macho around, you still had Flair around. But they went younger. Here's a good one. Meltzer said that the double main event for WrestleMania was going to be Perfect and Hart, and then versus Yokozuna. I have no idea what that means. Perfect and Hart versus Yokozuna appear to be the double main event. So somehow they were going to do Perfect and Yoko, and then Brett and Yoko.
That's weird.
Unless Hogan works, which is unlikely, which of course Hogan did work, but it didn't affect Hart Yoko thing. So wrong again. I got one more interesting thing for you. Okay, so I was just kind of browsing the newsletters. In this 6-week span, okay, like the first 6 weeks of 1993. So you're thinking 1993, what's going on during 1993? It was, it was not a golden era of wrestling, okay? Listen to what happens. Ric Flair jumps from WWF to WCW. Marty Jannetty, who's getting ready to be, in the Intercontinental title feud against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, gets fired again. Andre the Giant dies. Kerry Von Erich dies. JR is fired from WCW and jumps to WWF. Monday Night Raw debuts. Put in charge of WCW is Eric Bischoff. That's just the first 6 weeks of the year.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's insane.
Thing about the wrestling business. If I said, hey, in the last 6 weeks of the NFL season, tell me what happened. You wouldn't tell me anything interesting. You go, Patrick Mahomes had a good game. This star wide receiver tore his AC. I mean, it's not interesting. That's what makes the wrestling business, right? Even in this era where the on-screen product pretty much sucked, right? WCW and WWF kind of sucked. That's all the shit going on behind the scenes. That's why the business is so interesting and will always be. It's often more exciting than what's on camera.
Yeah, I just think it's just crazy to think these pockets like that of times in wrestling like that, all that happening, how consequential it was for not just 1993, but wrestling overall, the legacy of.
At the time you're thinking, you're thinking, are these businesses even going to last? This industry's dying. WCW is barely hanging on. WWF is running high school gyms and taping 3 or 4 Raws at a time.
Right.
Are they even going to survive? And then, boom, Hogan's in WCW, and there's some intrigue there. And fast forward 2 years later and you've got the NWO. I mean, it's just like just crazy what happened. 4 years after this, the business is hot as hell with the Monday Night Wars.
Yep.
But at
So
the
we got
same time, I look at how great it is right now, and it's like there's no guarantee. I mean, you don't think Vince is saying, "Hey, this thing could," and Bruce, guys like that aren't saying, "Hey, this thing could turn around." I mean, you Triple H in charge of creative. He used to work high school gyms. He knows what could happen. So I don't think they take it for granted at all. And I think that's why they're trying to, grow the thing internationally and make sure it continues to grow.
Yeah, anymore. We talked about it last week. At what point, too, does like Triple H or even not even Triple H, but like Endeavor, do they wake up and like, you know what, we're gonna kill AEW this week? Like we're gonna whether it's buy out or go after the TV deals or whatever it might be. Like and I wonder too, like how much or how like with all the TV deals and everything happening and stuff like that, like, and a lot of these executives, like, how do they feel about Endeavor? And so, yeah, like Tony Khan is just Tony Khan. Like we've said this before. I don't know who he surrounds himself with as like the business people that didn't look great, but yeah. Who is he surrounding himself with to make some of these business deals and to get some of these people like in the doors that he needs to? Like if it's just him and you read, like we've said it before, you're just reading his like anger tweeting after he gets pissed off. Like I don't want to work with that guy, but at the same time, like Endeavor, like a multi-billion-dollar company, Nick Khan, who's got the TV backing, like I feel like anymore they've kind of pushed Vince out. He's on the board, but he's just on the board. Like he doesn't, but he's probably perfectly content with that and to take his multi-million dollars and do it. But at what point do they say, "Yep, all right, today's the day we're going to kill him"?
Yep.
Good little match here. Kind of, I say not slow, but methodical is best way to put it. And so these guys kind of working hard, kind of stiff as well too, like kind of some good moves and stuff like that. Yeah.
I have my doubts on how AEW is going to handle Sting's retirement. I think having Flair involved is kind of weird. I've just been disappointed in general. I think it could have and should have been a bigger deal. I wonder too, and maybe this is just the WWF mark in me, but like I wonder, does Sting come out in WWE at some point for like a farewell from there?
Yeah, boy, that'd be crazy. Yeah, if they could.
Does he come out? I mean, I guess it won't work with WrestleMania because of the timing, but like, do you get him, at a SummerSlam or something one final time, just to do a Stinger splash? And I don't know. I think Triple H is a big fan of his, so I could see them saying, can we do something with you, even if you're not going to wrestle again?
Well, and I wonder too, like, okay, AEW is doing this long retirement for him. Like, is he wavering? Like, is it how he wants to, hopefully it pans out to where he's going out how he wants to go out. But is it though? Like, it is going out with 500,000 people watching you on AEW Dynamite really how you want to go out? I don't know. Like, on the flip side, like, do you give him? It doesn't even have to be a Mania moment. Like, give him maybe a WCW related pay-per-view historical moment. Like, let it be Survivor Series. Like, who cares? Like, whatever it might be. But I would have a little hesitation. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't think it's been. I mean, they're having it's just a really good match, just commercial break here. Yeah, just a really good match, just back and forth. And I mean, this for this era, this is like a really, really good match. You just didn't see much of this. So we only have 9 minutes. So we only have 9 minutes before we have to go, is what the commentary just said. Ooh. I got the subtitles on screen for some reason.
Big Nux there. Yeah. Big shot there from Flair.
Again, we'll see how they handle the Sting thing. Again, I know I'm a WWF mark, but it's like, it feels like the send-off needs to be at WrestleMania. But I'd say the same for Edge. I'd say the same for Daniel Bryan. Like, these guys, their final match should be at WrestleMania.
Yep. Yeah, plain and simple.
Did you hear Jericho kind of running down WWE? He was on
Yeah.
Chris Van Fleet's podcast recently, and I'm not going to show up for the Hall of Fame, and I don't even care. I'm sitting there thinking, dude, it may not be for 10 years. You're going to be up on stage in a suit and hugging Vince and Triple H. They always do. All these guys all talk a big game, and that's fine. I get it. Like, you probably do beat it at the time, but it's like, for all the shit Jim Cornette said about WWE, guess what? Tuxedo on stage giving the speech,
Yep.
some of it's just age and perspective. You get to a point where, God, I mean, look at Perfect.
Perfect kind of selling. Here we go. Yep. Kind of just taking the chops. Really good. So, yeah, Flair kind of backing off. Really good. Yeah. Bleeding a little bit too. Yep. There, like you said, from Perfect, kind of all over the forehead. Yeah.
One of the things Perfect could have probably used was like a shift in gimmick at this point. Like, instead of the Mr. Perfect thing, do you, calling him Kurt Hennig, even if he's still using the Perfect brand or word, just remember you're good, but I'm perfect. Like, you could still use it in there, but, or the Perfect one, Kurt Hennig. Like, it would just been the Mr. Perfect thing, like, by the 90s just seemed a little goofy,
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, well, and especially at a time when like a lot of these wrestlers were, different, come out somebody different, or like, kind of the gimmick, or maybe he lost being perfect or something. Like, do you play up that storyline? Like, that could have been a thing. Flair using the ropes here, trying to get the pin. Yep. I don't know how the ref is counting there. Is that Earl? What's he doing? It's just weird.
It's a little different. He's trying to get he kicks the leg off. I like that.
Yep. Going for the perfect plex. Got it.
Always one of my favorite moves.
Oh, and nobody does it.
Look at that ovation.
Everybody on their feet. Yep.
I mean, really good stuff. They are going nuts.
Really good stuff. Yep.
Heated flipping out. That's fantastic.
Good match. There you go. Yep.
Really good match.
Yeah, Heenan not pleased.
Love it. I think this is so good. I mean, Flair's arguably in his prime, or maybe the tail end of his prime, but still looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. It just felt like he underachieved,
Yeah. Unfortunately, yep. Gone too soon. Yep.
That's it, man.
Good stuff. All right.
Flair on his way out back to WCW. All right.
Loser leaving town. Okay.
Get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
So did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I think the match was, like I said, it's very methodical. I think, but and I say that in a good way, because I thought that they worked extremely well together. You kind of wonder, like, did Flair want to work with him since he knew he was leaving, and kind of how they did that. And so, yeah, I think it was just overall, I was really impressed. How about you?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, again, different era. I understand that, like, if it was on Raw this week or on AEW this week, you'd go, oh, it's kind of slow, and the match was too long. Bro, different era.
Yeah.
And at this time, really good match. Two established guys. I liked it. Again, I stand firm that I think a more modern presentation of Mr. Perfect would have been good. I think building Flair as a character more would have been good. So, yeah, I just being critical of those two things. But otherwise, I liked it, man. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, so this one kind of what happened. Flair, of course, this was his return to WCW at this point. His last appearance with who was WWF at the time would have been February 11th, 1993. Like I said, this was taped, and so it really didn't happen that long. Perfect though, he actually started feuding with Lex Luger. Luger ended up beating him in the WrestleMania 9 match, even though you had. Perfect's feet were on the ropes, and so there was some shenanigans as well too there, and so they kind of he ended up getting into a feud with Shawn Michaels after that, and so yeah, just it kind of made sense, but they continued the feud, or Shawn Michaels and Perfect continuing or starting the feud after Mania. So just some quick stuff there. PWI Perfect was 9 in 1993. Flair was 6. Kind of an interesting write-up here from no stars here, but just an interesting write-up. It won't look as though Flair jumped from WWF to WCW to the casual fan. It will look as though Flair lost his job with WWF and had no choice but to return to WCW, which is established again as the second-rate circuit. I don't know whether or not Flair had the choice in whether to handle his departure like this, or his release was based on him doing this on the way out, but the particular clean job in the match that would be viewed by millions rather than just a few thousand hardcore fans in a few cities, many of whom don't take wins and losses seriously, will have an effect on Flair's image upon his return. While Flair's first interview in WCW, and this is dependent upon him going there, which of course he did, may erase much of the stigma of the loss to a degree, the clean loss to Perfect in a match that forced him to leave rather than him deciding to seek a more lucrative pastures in the fans' eyes will establish him in some eyes as damaged goods for his return. Interesting. And so he of course didn't just kind of getting a report on this one. The match was said to have been excellent, lasting about 20 minutes, and Perfect juiced. The blade seems to be back and used minimally, with Perfect winning with the Perfect Plex. And so no stars on this one, but kind of interesting write-up, kind of his thoughts on Flair. What are your thoughts, Tom?
And I did see somewhere that he gave this 4 stars, so
okay, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. I mean, this is kind of like, my childhood era. So I got this at a 7, like a really solid 7. Just crowd was into it. Love these guys. Thought it was a fun little stipulation. Love the Raw setting. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there too. I think it was just a good match overall. Like the build was so short, like there just wasn't a lot going on. Yeah, they had a few matches here and there, but overall though, like it didn't need a ton. But on the flip side, like you have a good match like that, like you don't need more than that. And while they're not like super technical, that's not what I'm looking for either. But it was still really good overall.
I'm glad we covered it, man.
Yeah, me too. I, of course, want to remind everybody, new year, new you, whatever you're looking for, using our promo codes at manscaped.com, all kinds of new stuff from the end of the year in the shop. And so using the promo code PAYOFF will get you 20% off and free shipping. Make sure that you're using that. Whatever you're getting, whatever you're ordering, like it's absolutely worth it. Tom and I, we talk about it every week. Tom and I love it. And so make sure to check it out. So, all right, we continue on the road next week. Not quite WrestleMania matches for us, but we're getting there.
Dude, I'm pumped. This is the best time of the year to be a wrestling fan, and it's awesome, man. It is so much fun. So we appreciate you listening. As always, we'll see you next week on an all-new episode of The Path.